we overprinted, and they're going to be popes. So it's better, ultimately, I think, to aim to connect with your readers, people who are going to like your work and stick with you and support you, than for this vague platform that is going to catapult you to where? Honestly, probably to a place where you're so busy that you don't even have time to write anymore. So I think it's very important, before we've actually had any level of success, that we do think a little bit like, what do I really want from a published career? I sort of blew my agent's mind the other day, just talking about like speaking engagement, like all this stuff, and I was like, well, you know what I really want is just to sort of quietly sit at home and write more books. And then there was a silence. She was like, really? I was like, yeah. She goes, okay, well then we have to regroup. But I think what we're trying to do is beautiful and quiet privilege with a lot of noise around it. And that our greatest formula for success is going to be holding on to the key to that magic place inside of us that allows us quietly, with no other distractions, when you're really in flow, that access to that place is sacred. And the other stuff can be great, but it can also pierce little holes into that magic place. So just focus on the writing, learn to revise, get out of your own way, learn how to get out of your own way, and surround yourself with people who believe in you and who have the guts to tell you when you're making bad decisions or when you're being too egotistical. And that's all I'm going to say now because I'm hot, actually. No, because I think let's talk again. Let's now share our questions and thoughts. I'm a very open person. And now it's your time. Let's talk. Who has questions, thoughts? Yes?
I actually have a question. I self-published a poetry collection because I was like, I don't think anybody's going to buy this, so I'm just going to do it myself because I wanted it in a physical form. And then I was talking during one of our agent panels at the MFA program, I was like, what do you guys do with self-published work? I was like, it's in a completely different genre than I would be submitting to agents now. And they're like, just don't even tell us about it. Is that also your experience?
So, starting from a place of positivity, they didn't word that very well, but what they're trying to say to you is, well, let me back up. I'm not going to try to speak for someone else. The thing with self-published work that's tricky is that if you go on, once you've self-published something, it's actually viewed as if it's published by a traditional publisher. They can't, with very, very, very few exceptions, no traditional publisher will take on an already published manuscript. So if you are working on something that you think has any potential of being traditionally published, your best bet is always, always to either sit on it as long as you need to find a new way in, or to revise it and perfect it, because once you've self-published it, you've kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit. You don't, they can't really see it again. Now, it sounds like what you did is close to what I did. What happened with me is that my first book, I'm having so much fun here without you, I got an agent for and an editor for quite quickly in my early 20s. And I mean, by quickly, I mean I got the agent almost right away. The editor from Doubleday was like 10 days later. And I thought, it really looked like everything was going to happen. All my dreams were going to come true. And I was still in France at that time, but I had committed to moving back to the United States. And I revised that book all summer per the editor's wishes. We hadn't signed anything yet, but we were like talking on my flip phone. So I thought she's calling me on a European number, like, I mean, you know, I'm revising. Get back to New York, and a couple days before this meeting where I was supposed to finally meet her and sign papers. And she pulled out of the whole thing, changed her mind, she quit her job. I think she had her own stuff going on, fine, but I was orphaned. And my agent said, like, she was the first one to offer, we'll find someone else. 18 editors later, he was like, let's not talk about that book anymore. Too many people have seen it. So I was so, like, stunned by that. I had just not, there had been no room in my heart or brain for that outcome. And I went into this tailspin where, like, I looked at the notes that we'd gotten back from the editors who passed, and I was like, oh, so they don't think it's commercial enough? They don't think the narrator's sympathetic enough? Well, let me write something with a very sympathetic, and I went into this tailspin where I just produced like 2 terrible manuscripts in 6 months and realized like, okay, gotta start again. Clearly this is not gonna happen on the timetable that I thought. And many, many years passed. Ultimately it wasn't till 10 years later that first book came out. 10 years, it's a long time. And once I finally got on my feet again, which for me meant leaving New York, I just felt too ripped apart and like raw around all these other creative people with trust funds. Once I finally got back on my feet and started writing again, I got to a place where I had enough stories for a short story collection. And I just did not want to ruin it by getting a rejection letter, oh, short story collections don't sell and this and that. I was at a place where I thought, so this is gonna take so much longer, Timber. This is gonna take so much longer than I thought, but I need a book. Like I really need to see my own friends and family holding something in mind. I need to hear comments about it. I need to pass it in my own living room and be like, there's my book. I needed that, like a drug or something. And so I made kind of a little commitment to myself that I would go with a vanity press that was brick and mortar and really existed. There's a nice one out near where I live called Troy Bookmakers, where you go and there's real people and they're affiliated with all the local bookstores throughout the Albany region. And so they will stock your book, you can actually host a book event. And I worked with an editor there, we got a really nice cover, and I produced 150 copies, and I said, that's it. When the 150 are gone, I'll never do another one. And I didn't, I never made another. We went through the 150, and that gave me the boost I needed, to get over the hump of the next couple of years, where I was working on the stuff that was gonna take me through the gauntlet of the agents and the. So I think for people in that type of situation where you're just ready, and I also think that this sort of guerrilla style of DIYing things can be an enormous pleasure. When you have control over what it looks like, and honestly, I have friends that, especially illustrators, they were making zines and things and stapling them and going around and distributing them at conferences, and it was great fun. It's also really nice to say to someone, oh, this is $3, rather than like, this is 27. It's a nice place to start out. It's a fun way to swap your work with people. I think that's great, but if you've been slaving away on a novel and you're only just starting, you've had 8 agents reject you or something, I don't think the time to pivot and self-publish, because you probably haven't given it your all yet. Incredibly long-winded answer to your question. Who else? Concern, comment.
I've got a question. You were talking about selling your book, and so is it typical, like if you're not like a big name author yet, that you're really the one that's selling your books? That's the main way they get sold? The publisher isn't doing something to sell them?
So, in theory, it's not like you have a little hot dog cart that you're pushing around, right? Well, you can. Actually, to win, I've done a couple farmers markets. Like I live in this sort of mountainous region, and I have to say, if you have a book come out or self-published book, get thee to a farmer's market, because people come in there ready to burn money. They think nothing of spending $15 on a little head of radicchio. They see your book and they're like, $16? no problem. So, but, okay, in theory, this is true with the independent presses, the smaller presses as well. In theory, a writer gets an agent sells a project to an editor, well, first the editor pitches it to the editorial board and everyone has to agree to acquire it. They let the editor acquire it. And then this part starts to depend on size of the house and the amount of money they're gonna allot towards your book. But best case scenario, you're equipped with someone who's in charge of the marketing, social media, publicity, there's probably an editorial assistant, and again, best case scenario, all these people are working together and having meetings on what's the best way, what's the market for this book, how can we reach the market for this book, how can we reach book clubs, are we gonna put this person on tour or not, and then with the publicity, that stuff they can control. Marketing you can control because you decide to spend the money to put an ad in such a place or not. The publicity is a bit trickier